Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Forever a Lion, an Orlando City podcast. This is an Orlando City podcast about the people around the club. Each episode, we will dive into people and why they love this club so much. We're going to hear all about their Orlando City stories. So settle in, grab a beverage, and let's talk Orlando City. And there was no other place than we could start, but with the Queen of Orlando City herself, founder and senior vice president and current club ambassador, Kay Rawlins. Welcome, Kay. Also, my stepmother, if people have not realized yet.
Yeah, I feel like there's still some people out there who have only just made that link. But thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, where else could we begin? Talking about the club and talking about people who matter around the club, than with the founder and the origin of all, Queen of Orlando City. As I mentioned, I know there's many people around the club that still know you. I see, talk to you and remember you from those days, but there's a lot of new fans that might not know who you are or where you came from. So a lot of this is to do with that. So we're excited to have you on and talk all of these things. First of all, a very obvious question. I kind of just talked about it, but who are you, and what is your relationship to Orlando City?
So, Kay Rawlins, I'm one of the founders of this amazing club. Um, and I guess, like you said, for the new people, we actually started the team in Austin, um, mainly because that's where we were living at the time. And it seemed like a good idea. Your dad and I had both sold businesses. We were living in Austin and enjoying living there. And really, it was only when Stoke City, our hometown team, and one that we'd both supported since we were young, um, we're looking for an affiliate. And so that was when we started looking at, and this was back in 2007. Um, so we started looking at, what does soccer even look like in America? Hadn't paid a huge amount of attention, if I'm honest. And I'd have to go back and see, but probably MLS at that time maybe had 14, maybe 16 teams. So still on the rise. And when we couldn't find what we thought they were looking for, we we were both unemployed at the time. So we just kind of went, why don't we just start our own team? How hard can it be? And unfortunately it was.
And that was, of course, Austin. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't even know about the franchise was once a thing in Austin, and that we moved the franchise here. Talk a little bit about that time in Austin, and what kind of caused, not necessarily the move to Orlando to be essential, but the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for many, many reasons. Obviously, we started in United Soccer Leagues, which are obviously based just down the road here in Tampa. Um, and we just could not get traction there. So, if in the 3 years that we played in three different stadiums, all of them high school football stadiums, John, with all the lines on them, all the restrictions because, it was a no alcohol zone and just everything that we obviously had not taken into account when we decided to do it. And I think, in almost in keeping, I think, with Major League Soccer, when they realized that the people they needed to be marketing to were not soccer families, because that's what we thought in Austin. Everyone plays. There's thousands of kids. There's all these huge, big youth clubs there. We were like, of course they want to come and support a team. And unfortunately, when you think about it, if you're a parent and you've been out twice or sometimes three times that week already watching your kid kick a ball around, last thing you want to do on a Saturday is go and do it again. And that's, Major League Soccer kind of realized that they needed to change their market, and that was when they started going after the millennials. And obviously that's when things started to really pick up. So we basically were at the kind of end of our tether, if you like, where we're like, we cannot throw any more money at this team. We're getting no support from government. We're not getting support in the stands, the media. It was like we didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those games at House Park. It was like 1,000 people, and
Yeah,
I remember dressing up as Sergeant Pepper one game. That was the mascot. You remember
I
Sergeant
have a
Pepper?
picture. I still have a
Yeah.
picture. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah, and it was quaint, but it didn't feel like it was gonna go really far
It was
there.
never going anywhere.
No,
That
and
was the dream, was not to have this terribly expensive hobby that a few thousand people might want to come and enjoy. So that was when we went back to USL and said, look, this is not working. And they basically said to us, look, we think you're good owners. You've got all the right tools. You're just in the wrong place. Would you look at another market? And so they suggested, I think, two or three different ones. And Orlando just kept rising to the top for many reasons. And I think at that point we had reassessed the dream, if you like, and we made it bigger. And so we were like, if we want to be Major League at some point, where will Major League go next? And if you looked at a map of America at that time, the furthest kind of east it went was Dallas, DC. That was it. There was nothing in the South. So we knew they were coming this way at some point. And then they said, well, we've actually announced a team in Orlando, and the guy that was going to fund it he's gone. So please, will you come? And I don't know. I mean, number one, your dad was pretty smart because he took me to Winter Park, and that's where we stayed. And so,
a really nice part of Orlando
I was
first.
just going to
Yeah,
say,
start with the fancy streets of Park Ave.
yes, it was. And I think it's like buying a house. Can you imagine yourself? And that's what it was. Could I imagine myself living here? And yes, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah, I
restaurants.
mean, you're moving yourselves, the business, yes, but you personally, of course.
Yeah, you have to want to go there personally as well. And then very, very quickly, we met Mayor Dyer, the mayor of Orlando, who just said, look, we only have Orlando Magic here. There's absolutely room for another professional team. If you come, we will do everything we can to help you. And literally that was it. We moved here, and it just felt like everyone just put their arms around us and said, we're in. Like, what can we do to help? And that was, there was some in the media who were not mean, just very, soccer's failed here, MLS has failed here. Why do you think you'll be any different? Good luck, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, now they launch an MLS franchise, like San Diego, right? And it's okay, this is a nailed on, gonna be a success. No one's questioning it. But back in, 2009, soccer was still, is this a viable,
Yeah,
entertainment business? Will people come? Was still a
yeah,
question.
yeah, absolutely. And so obviously 2011 was the first season. And I think one of the things that we did that was super smart, which obviously Mayor Dyer was amazing. I will always give him so much credit for what he did. But we also put together an advisory group of what would be now influencers, the original influencers who, were heads of big companies, who were, your Disney, your Universal, your SeaWorld, your Central Florida Hotel and Lodging. It was a lot of kind of big hitters. And we brought them into our group and said, this is what we're going to do. And then we would feed them information. And so then when someone, if they were out talking and someone said, "Oh, what about this soccer team?" and they go, "Oh, well, let me tell you," and they would know what to say. So that was also hugely important. It really was. And then the supporters, like, they just came so early on. I think that was a big surprise, that there was already people just wait. It felt like they were just waiting for us to come, which was just incredible. So yeah, it was, and because obviously you worked in the club. Those early years were so much fun. We were literally building the plane as we were flying it, and we did so many crazy guerrilla marketing things, and just, I mean, again, Teresa Tatlonghari, if you're listening, big shout out to you, because some of the things that we did were just so out of the box, different. And that's what we wanted to be. We wanted to be different, but we also wanted to be authentic. And I think and then obviously you and James and Jamie and all that group that were there at that time brought that authentic voice, because especially you and James, you've grown up, with football in England. And so we're not having dancing girls, and no, we're not doing. Do you know what I mean? It was a very kind of, we're going to
Yeah,
create
or
something different.
traditionalists, in some
Yeah,
ways, purists of the sport in some ways.
absolutely.
And then you bonded that, like, with a lot, like you said, Teresa and her experience of what it takes to make entertainment in America and what people want from sports. And there was definitely that sort of give and take, right? Of the European ideas that, like
Yeah.
dad and you and other people had, and then the other ideas that the, people we brought in had as well. I just feel like those days was something special about the group of people that worked at Orlando City. It was a real family vibe in a small way. And you hear a lot of those fans talk about when they used to come in the office back then.
Mhm.
And I was thinking back to, I mean, we've had several offices here in Orlando City. The first one ever was up in Lake Mary,
Oh my god.
where you were like sharing tell us about sharing, desks. It
Oh
was like
no,
what,
that
6
was
rooms?
that was horrendous. Yeah, we had a shared receptionist for the whole building, so they would have to tell us that someone was on the phone or someone was in reception. I shared an office with Adrian, our coach, and Ian, and then the youth soccer guy, Brian. We were all in one room. I think we maybe had two phones between four of us. And then they would come down and complain because they'd hear a soccer ball being kicked around, and we used to get told off for making too much noise. So
What,
we
Inchi and Ian kicking the ball
oh,
around?
well, because we had this corridor and you could bounce it off all the doors on the way. So yeah. Anyway, so we didn't stay there very long, thank goodness. That was tough. That was tough. But yeah, I mean, we've had fans. I think it was one of the hashtag. Maybe it was the 15K that we did that time, where we had people coming in the office
Mm.
to pick up tickets. And it was so much fun.
I remember when we played, was it Pumas, or who was the Mexican team we played when we were
Mm,
still in USL?
yeah.
And I think it was like Tigres or Pumas, I can't remember. And we were giving away tickets from the front office. And I remember manning the desk one day, and there was like, I didn't speak a lick of Spanish, and you'd have all these people coming in asking for tickets to come see Tigres. Like, "Are you
Yeah.
guys giving out tickets?" I'm like, "No, you got to go to the box office. Like, we don't have, So even back then, we were tapping into a core of, Orlando City people that were into soccer, that it really only just got here at that point. And from there, the club grew. And then the Winter Park offices, I think that was probably where most of my memories from the early days of the club, and yours too. And I think a lot of those early fans, if they'd have come in and to the office, it probably would have been that one right there on the corner of Orange and
Orlando.
can't think of the other
It's
street. Orange
Orlando.
and Orlando, right
Yeah.
there in Winter
Yeah,
Park.
opposite the Einstein's Bagels. Yeah, then we
Yeah.
moved then we moved to South Street. So
And then down to the GAI building on South Street. Yeah,
I
where
think the thing everybody, well, there's so many good things about that office, especially all the televisions that we had when the World Cup was on was amazing. But we had that. Remember that countdown clock? I feel like someone took
countdown to the first
an axe
game.
to it afterwards, but it was the countdown to MLS, and it was both great and horrendous at the same time, because it was great because we were on a countdown and it was going to happen, but then it was how many days? No, we're not ready. But I know. I mean, I've talked. I actually did a TED talk about how do you grow a fan base, and I talked about some of Teresa's. Just, I mean, one of the ones I remember the best was when Don Garber was coming to Orlando. This is when we were still USL, and we were obviously, we'd already said to them, what do we need to do? What are the boxes we need to check? And we'd invited him to Orlando. And so then what we did was we asked all our supporters and said, if you could say one thing to Don Garber, what would it be? And so people sent in, what they wanted to say. And then we picked him up from the airport and we took him on this very kind of circuitous route down to Harry Buffalo's. And every billboard that he passed said, "Hey, Don, the city beautiful deserves the beautiful game. Hey, Don, Orlando is next for MLS." Like all these, he was like, he just thought that was incredible. And then he came into the pub and it was jammed. Like you couldn't move in there. And that was the whole very famous, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So we knew then that it was going to happen. And so many like and I think the other one was always putting the fans first. And so when we made the announcement, the official announcement that we were going to be a major league team, we did it the Cheyenne Saloon, which was a really nice full circle moment because that's where they'd announced the World Cup coming to Orlando, in '94. And we had, and MLS wanted to do some press conference in the middle of the day. And we were like, oh, no, no, no. We're having a party and the fans are coming. And so we had that really cool balloon drop. And I mean, it was amazing. And the same thing with the stadium. So same thing, normally it's this little photo op and you've got the mayor and a couple of commissioners and, you're off, you're done. Nope. We're having another party. And that one, we closed down Church Street and we marched to the stadium. All the players were there. I've got photographs with, a lot of the players with us, with the supporters, with flags and, drums and smoke flares and everything. And then again, Teresa, with her crazy ideas, had flown in 25 tons of purple sand, and everyone got to take, a little memento home. So I think, those are things. It's very much if you know, or I was there. There's definitely a kind of camaraderie around that. But yeah, she was, and the magnets. I mean, good grief! Look how Magnet Monday went bonkers. So
I
that,
have a picture somewhere where I'm sitting on like a whole bunch of boxes, and all those boxes are full of Orlando City magnets. Where we just ordered so many at one point that I made a throne where I'm sitting on top of them. Um, it's funny you mentioned the opening of the stadium. I still have the buckets with the
yep, me too.
it's somewhere here behind me in my setup. So yeah, it's those memories, and I feel like those early days of USL. Of course, it was what we were doing off the field, but it wouldn't have been what it was if it wasn't for the on field and how successful they were. You
Yeah,
know, Adrian, Miguel,
we won.
Jamie Watson. Like we
We
could
won
we
something
we
every
can be
year.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can be here all day
we won.
naming all of those guys and that history. But I was kind of hoping you could talk about maybe your favorite like off field. memory? We'll talk in a minute about, maybe moments on the field, but for you over all the years, is there anything that's really stood out as like this was the moment? Maybe it was one of those events, or I don't know what it was for you because there's been so many for you, Kay. You've been there every single step. But if you had to pick one moment that really stood out for you, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, there are so many, but I think certainly for off the field, it would be the first community garden that we built. So we'd already been building mini pitches, and that was great. But then we'd realized that we were teaching these kids, about nutrition and what to eat, and then we're like, but they live in food deserts, and well, what can we do about that? And that was when we went to the city of Orlando and said, hey, we got some dollars. We think we want to do community gardens. We don't really know what that means. And they were like, okay, we already have somewhere picked out. And it was actually kind of fitting because the first one we did was at Rock Lake, which is very near Camping World Stadium. And there's a community center, and then there were two tennis courts, one of which we'd converted to a mini pitch, purple, obviously. And then right next to it was this big space that they wanted to do a community garden. So we had a few meetings with the residents and whittled it down to, how many people actually were interested. And then we had a morning, we probably had about 100, 75 to 100 supporters who came out to help us build them. And we were still building the stadium at the time. So I spoke with Barton Mallow and said, hey, could you send us a couple of your guys over? So they came over with their power tools. So we built 22 raised beds and then filled them. Obviously, the fans were the ones like coming back and forward with wheelbarrows. And then we planted them. And I think one of the things why it resonated so much to me was those 22 beds were adopted, obviously, by all these different families. And over time, they came to know each other. And these were people who never spoken to each other, would have passed each other by in the streets, nothing. But now they're talking about carrots and, I've got too much okra. Can I swap it for some of your peppers? And it was just such a cool outcome that I was not expecting. So it wasn't just building a garden, it was helping build a community as well. And we've gone on and built so many gardens since in schools, in community centers. And I just think it's not something you would associate necessarily with a sports team. But it's just hugely satisfying. It's just been one of the really cool things that we've done.
Well, and I think that being your favorite thing is kind of speaks to you as well, a lot, Kay, and what you're putting into the club and what you want out of it, and that community sense for sure. And I think a lot of people might have said like, oh, meeting Marta or like saying hi to, being, seeing Kaka, whatever. But I think for you, it really shows that, and I'm a lot in that camp too, whereas the community aspect of the club is one of the best things about it, and really one of the things that makes it special, and the reason I think that a lot of people want to come back year after year because they feel like they're part of something larger, part of a family. So I think that's wonderful. All the pictures that you guys have done over the years, all of the gardens. I mean, so much giving back in the community, and you've been such a, obviously the head of that for so long. Now kind of moved into more of an ambassador role, but you obviously, can look back and say, what an incredible foundation and community that you ran for so many years, giving back to community in such a great way. My next question for you, this one might be a little bit more difficult. What is your favorite on-field memory of Orlando City? Now, this can be any game, any goal, anytime we lifted a trophy, anything that happened on the field, USL, MLS, it doesn't matter.
Okay, and I'm going to stick with obviously Orlando City. I mean,
You can go Orlando Pride if you
well,
want to, because I know that is your other baby,
I
and
know, I
I
know.
kind of when I set this up, I was like, really, I feel like I should be asking Kay all these questions about Orlando Pride,
No, no,
and maybe we'll do that one day.
we can do that another time. Yeah, I'll put that to one side because that's kind of an obvious one. I have two, I guess. I mean, the 2022 Open Cup, and especially you and James kind of being there. I have a photograph on my desk of you two hugging, and it gives me a lump in my throat every time I look at it because
We're
it was,
adorable. What can I say?
well, it was so joyful because we had all, obviously we won all those trophies in the USL days, and then we had a hiatus. So winning something and you guys both being there was just so special. Um, but I would still have to say the 2011 championship final, because I have never, in all my years of watching football, been to a game where my emotions were so all over the place. And for those, listening, and you can actually still find it. It's a very grainy video. I think it's on YouTube. But we'd already won the regular season, and then we're in America, so we go into playoffs, and so we're in the final, and it's 0-0, and then a guy is running towards the goal, and basically Miguel takes one for the team and just takes this guy out and gets sent off. So we have to bring a goalie on who hadn't played. Sean Kelly hadn't played all year. And we have to bring on our substitute goalie, who then became MVP for, like, it was it was honestly incredible. And I think one of the funniest pieces in a way was, um, we scored fairly near to the end of regular time, and we were up in one of the suites, and they were on the radio going, get down here, get down here, we've got the trophy ready, we're going to present it. We come flying through the concourse, we run out onto the field just as they score, and it was like, no, now we're going into 30 minutes of extra time, and then there was an almost penalty, and there was a penalty, and then it's still tied, and then we go into penalties, and that substitute goalie saved two penalties. Like, it was, we won in the end, but it went to the last kick, which, honestly, well, like,
Yeah.
oh, the emotions, you just can't even
I
describe it to anyone.
I feel like Sean Kelly's contribution there is underrated in, just
Yes.
a very brief moment, what he did to step up and,
And we
make
were,
those 2 saves.
yeah.
I mean, I think the drama of that game was
Oh,
incredible. Not the drama of that game for a regular game would have been
yes.
crazy, but for a final of your first ever season of a franchise to win it all, I think, and if people weren't hooked from that in the first season, that just accelerated the
Yeah.
growth of USL. We were getting, I think that final was, did we get
We
over
got 11.
10,000?
It was, yeah, it was over
Yeah.
11,000. Yeah. It
I
was pretty
know
good. Yeah.
it was a couple of years later that we got over 20,000 when we
Yeah.
won
So
in 2013 as well, and
that was when Dom came back and scored 4 goals. But yeah, we did a hashtag 15K, and then we got over 22 in the end, which was amazing. And then who could forget, hashtag fill the bowl, which was like a pipe dream, where it felt like one in the beginning. And then the momentum started gathering, and we blew through 30,000, and then 40,000, and then 50, and we're like, we're going to do it. This is amazing. It was, yeah, those were some heady days. And I think, like I say, I'm forever grateful that you and James were part of that, because what an incredible, special thing for us to share as a family, that we were a part of it, that we grew this club from a baby. So yeah, it's been a pretty special journey.
that day of the opening game with Kaká scoring the equalizer, I mean, it was. it was such a blur of a day for me. I think there was just so much happening, and I feel like I should have stopped and taken more of it in at the time.
I
But
think that
yeah,
was, and that was
looking
what,
back at that crowd and the occasion was an
yeah, and
incredible
that's
day.
where Adrian was super smart because he had told the players, I don't even know where they parked, but they parked together and then came in on the coach because he wanted them to see. And so they are trying to get this bus through all these people. And it was just, this is what we were playing for. Like this stadium. And some of those kiddos who were on the team then playing in front of 62,500 people. Can you even imagine? I mean, I know Kakar, obviously, he's done it before, but for so many of them on that team, I can't. I mean, that just must have been incredible. But how smart of him to, same thing, soak it in, feel this day, remember this moment. This is a truly special day. We are launching a franchise, and he understood, that kind of timing and that moment in time and how important it was.
It was kind of like a rebirth of Orlando City in some
Yeah,
ways. I mean, the USL success and that was wonderful, but just as we had to rebrand ourselves and really become an entirely new club in some ways under Major League Soccer's franchise, it was the same thing on that first day. It felt like a first ever Orlando City game, even though it was,
yeah,
our first ever only in MLS.
yeah,
And a day I think I'll always look back fondly
yeah.
with lots of
Good
happy
news.
memories. All
Yes.
right, Kate, this is a tough one. Who is your favorite Orlando City player of all time? And I don't even know if like you can answer this because they're gonna text you. Some
That
other
is,
ones are gonna text you and say, "How come I'm not
I
your
know,
favorite?"
I know.
So you can have like honorable mentions. You can say these are
Yeah.
my top three. I'll allow that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put Miguel up there.
I
Um,
did have a suspicion Miguel would be near the top.
he has to be. I mean, number one, he came with us from Austin. We'd found him as a keeper over in Austin. And so he'd made the journey with us and been with us. And then, was a community ambassador. I mean, he was always one of my go tos. And I guess in some ways, we've had lots and lots of incredible players, but my soft spot will always be for the ones who put their hand up first and said, I want to be out in the community. So honorable mentions to Jamie Watson and Luke Bowden, because they were also always, and I still keep in touch with all of them. They're Jamie's doing great commentating. Obviously, we know Miguel's, the apple of Apple's eye, if that's a thing. And then Bods is obviously coaching over at Rawlins. And actually, I think that's actually a really great testament to the club as well. When you look at how many players, when they retired, wanted to stay. I mean, look at Tally. He's killing it over it in SWAT, and then his wife became a firefighter. So, a lot of them have stayed, and I love that. We've got some of them who work in our academy now. Um, so it's hard to not have the fondest memories, I guess, are the ones we've known the longest. And I think we were so much more in their lives back then. I mean, I remember in those early days, like we'd take them food parcels because I'd feel so bad about, how much we were paying them. So, but
I
yeah,
still remember taking Jean Jacques to the bank when he first came in, and he had to
yeah,
go to the bank. I had to go help him set up his bank account.
yeah,
It's stuff like that that you don't think about, and I think when it was USL and that level of, help that was needed, like we
yeah,
had them in apartments, and you had to really they're not making very much money, so it's a case of, you've gotta supply them with nutrition or else they're gonna go eat,
yeah.
fast food, like, it and then also some of the foreign players, I remember, was it Adama? Who
No,
always used to have who was it? Who'd
it
go out
was,
often eat candy, and we'd be like, "You can't do that, you're a pro
yeah,
athlete."
yeah. We had that Brazilian kid, Sullivan.
Oh, so
And we
so much.
and we we were like So Adrian was like, why does he keep cramping? And whoever was rooming with him when they went to away games said, you should see how much Coca Cola he drinks. And he'd come from a village, where he never really had soda. And then you come to America and it's free refills. Oh boy. So that's when they had to start doing a food diary. But yeah, so many fun memories. But yeah, I think, obviously I've met so many incredible people through this game. But the ones who bought into the dream like we did, who played their heart out for the club, they will always be special. And so, those would be my three. I'm gonna get
I don't
some.
know. I'm already thinking if 3 or 4 are gonna text you now, say, that's it's part of
Sorry,
the game, Kay. That's why
let
we
me
play.
know.
Alrighty, you got a chance to pick some other people here. This is not necessarily a player. This is more someone else around the club who is also one of your favorite people. This can be anybody who's influenced the club or you in any way that you feel is like a really amazing person in Orlando City.
Within the club or
Could
attached
be
to?
attached to, was in the club, anything really. I mean, someone that's on this journey that
Yeah.
you think has been an incredible person.
I'm gonna be. I'm gonna pick one in, one out, if that makes sense. So
That is
I
fine.
would pick Patty Henderson because she is the smile that greets you as you come into the club. She's been with us since, or certainly since the Winter Park, that office. Um, and she'd been involved in youth soccer before and had been told we were the devil incarnate, and then was kind of made to come and work for us almost. And of course now, she's just wonderful. Everyone loves her. She's just she's like everyone's mom, grandma, sister, whatever you need. Patty is there for everyone. And then the other one I would pick would be Kelly Cohen. So she came on board very early on to help us with strategy, to help us with, how do we get this club over the finish line? How do we, when we were going after funding, here's who you need to talk to and here's what you need to say to them. And she stayed with us through all that time. And now she's become a fan, even if she still couldn't explain some of the rules. But she's a very passionate fan, as is obviously Scott. But she's been with us, through everything, and she's become obviously a great friend to you guys. The four kids. Um, she's just an amazing friend to me. So I would give Kelly a shout.
I think that's two great people you picked there because they are people that others won't know necessarily who they are. Patty maybe a little bit more because she is that first face and people don't know who we're talking about. This is Patty Henderson, who has been the receptionist for Orlando City since I don't know 2011.
Yeah, 2012 maybe. Yeah,
So
but yeah, almost the whole journey.
that is an insanely long tenure,
Yes, yeah,
and several iterations of different offices and
yeah.
everything. Patty is a constant face, and we love her so much. And then Kelly, yeah, another person who's behind the scenes doing those important things to make things happen, like the stadium. I know how important Kelly was in working with the mayor and everything that happened with the site and the church that wouldn't move. I remember those stories, and Kelly's banging her head against the church that wants 50 million. That's they're not getting 50 million,
No,
So
crazy times.
those people around the club, I think you nailed my question there perfectly because
Thank you.
they are the people that not everybody knows about and
Right.
are just as important sometimes to making this all happen. And so shout out to Kelly and shout out to Patty, of course. Wonderful women. All right, Kay, next question for you. What is your game day ritual? I know you're usually working now, but do you have any superstitions on a game day? What does it look like? What do you like to do most game days?
Um, yeah, it's a little different. I still miss how easy it was to head out to the tailgate when we when we were at Camping World. That was always such a lot of fun. because you could literally kind of do a lap of all the lots and then go into the stadium. So it's a little more difficult now because we're, a little bit more spread out. Um, but I don't get there as early as I used to, but I do obviously every now and again go around to the fan zone to see what's happening out there. Um, I do usually wear, I always wear a jersey, always wear the same earrings, and usually the same sneakers. Like I think a lot of people have those kind of
Yeah.
superstitions. Um, it's, but yeah, it's a little different. I'll tell you what I also miss as well is Stonewall. That used to be a pre-game ritual going there, and it was so much fun because obviously it was known as being one of the gay bars, but nobody cared. Everyone gathered there. There would very often be a drag queen there entertaining everybody. They'd be wearing the club colors, and obviously they have that kind of upstairs kind of open balcony, so you could watch everything happening, which was really cool. You could watch people arriving. They're renovating it right now, so let's hope it opens as something fun. But yeah, I miss going to Stonewall. That was fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was the Yard Bar that was run by the Wall Street guys that was over there near the stadium, and I know that there's new owners now that have taken over the brewery, so that's still going on down the street at Broken Strings. But um, I think it's a shame Stonewall's not there. I'd love to have them back. I feel like we're a little bit lacking those really close businesses you could go grab a beer at
Yeah,
before the
well,
game.
they're doing
Um,
something to it, so cross your fingers.
we'll see. I know Orlando City got plans, always got plans, but those tailgating days back in the Citrus Bowl, that was yeah. I used to when I remember 2015 and 2016 when we used to run the tailgate out there, and that was huge. A lot like the fan zone we have now, but we had the fan zone and a tailgate, and it was so much fun. And everybody used to come out. We had Tom and Dan out there. We had a
Yeah,
stage. We used to have a band before every, like all that stuff. So I got a lot of happy memories of that, and that was part of my game day ritual. That now, obviously looks very different. Like
yeah.
like as many people, it changes over time. But those superstitions, they're there. Do you change things? Like, are you? I never asked you that before. Do you wear different shoes if we lose, or
Um,
just the
no,
same?
no, and we usually
Mm.
go the same way to the stadium, but that's more just practical.
No, that's part of it too. I think.
Yeah, but it's not
Yeah.
because it's any kind of ritual. It's just this is the fastest way.
That's the vibe. Alrighty. Another question for you. What part of Orlando City do you enjoy the most? And again, I gave you some suggestions there but obviously I'm not trying to lead you in any way, but it can be anything from, the game days to the communities to, the tailgating that we talked about to youth club to the events or
Yeah,
maybe
I
something
love
else.
I love interactions with the players and kids. Like I think there's something so special about meeting your idol, getting a picture taken, getting a signature, whatever it is. And some of the really special ones are when we do the camp for the Arnold Palmer kids around childhood cancer awareness month, and they get to sign a contract for the day, and they get their name on a jersey, and they come out on the pitch. So I think those are definitely some of them. I love when we do the Thanksgiving food giveaway every year for the people of Paramore. Those are always really cool. Um, yeah, I think again, it's always about community with me, and I'm sorry. Well, I'm not sorry. Um,
No, don't be sorry. That's who
no,
you are, Kay.
because it was always the pillar that was my passion, peace. Obviously, I love soccer. I grew up with it, but I think for me, it's what you can do as a team with the platform that you have. One of the things we haven't talked about is the rainbow seats in the stadium and how much that means to our LGBTQ community, that we took that stand and put our head above the parapet and said, well, we are an inclusive club. You are safe here. You are welcome here. And, those seats are a permanent and constant reminder that this is who we are. And if you don't like it, well, sorry, don't come. And again, I love our supporters for those things. So I love that there are always rainbow flags. It doesn't matter what game it is. It's not June. It doesn't matter. There's always support. I love how they have the country flags for the players up in the wall. How cool is that? That whatever country you're from, you can look up there and there's your flag. How welcoming and inclusive is that? So it's not the big things very often for me. It's the little things that can make it special for people. So yeah, that's what I would say.
A great answer once again. This one I think you probably answered many times throughout the podcast, but I'll ask it to you anyway. What does Orlando City mean to you personally?
Uh, it's part of my heart. It's something. It's so hard to explain to anyone who hasn't. It's like growing any business, I guess. You still must feel that sense of achievement and pride. But for me, it's around what this club means to so many people. I don't know if you remember this. After when we opened, after the first season in MLS in 2015, Orlando Health did a video. They didn't tell us, they hadn't told us they were going to do it, and they just did it themselves. And it made me cry because they'd gone round the tailgate talking to people and said, what does this club mean to you? And it was people saying, oh, we started parking next to these people, and now, we have dinner with them every week, or we go on vacation with them now. We met, at a game, and now we're married. There were so many stories, and it was an incredible feeling to know that what you helped to create means so much to so many people. This is part of it's part of your life now, that you talk about it when you're not at the game. You have predictions about what's going to happen, you have gossip about the players, whatever it is. This is part of your life now. And to know, and it's not even just people here. Think about people like Taylor in England, who has his own supporter group, and he's managed to connect with people all over England. How incredible is that, to know that we've touched people's lives in so many other places, not just here in Orlando, but everywhere. Like it's just an incredible, wonderful feeling.
Agreed. I mean, I think that's a lot of the reason why I want to do, this podcast is so that we can talk with people like you and have these conversations, find out what it means to them personally, what their story is, where they, originated in the club and why they love Orlando City. But I think for me, I really enjoyed watching this city and this nation fall more in love with soccer all the time,
Yes.
and Orlando City is our, microcosm of that, but it's happening all across the nation.
Yeah.
And so the more fans we get to a game, I think the more fans are going to want to come back, because that's what soccer does.
Yep. Agree.
Alrighty, this one's a little bit of fun. Give us your favorite spots in Orlando. Now, this could be a restaurant, a coffee shop, a park, a bar, or wherever you like. We want to know, where does Kay on a weekend? Where does she,
Oh,
like to go grab
so
a bite
many.
or a drink?
Mine will all be around food and drink. You know that.
I
Although
mean, yeah, you
I
can name
will.
a few. We're
Well,
just
I'll
interested.
give a shout out though to
Yeah.
Lake Eola, because like the market and just even walking around the lake is such a cool thing to do. That's definitely a fun
And the
place.
symbol of the pride there. You can see the
Yes,
mountain.
yes, there we go with the fountain in the middle. um, Obviously, or I love Maxine's. There's so many. Gosh, the Monroe. So it's if you haven't been, you could actually go for cocktails on your way to the game because it's right there in Paramore. It's just a fabulous little spot. I love Lamp and Shade, um, Kabuki Sushi. I mean, it's all food related. You know that, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's my favorite thing. And I want to give a shout out to Chris McCullion because he's my he's my soccer friend. We go to the games together, but he's also my let's try this new restaurant friend as well. He loves his food and drink like me, so and especially when the weather was a little cooler. I live obviously kind of near Colonial Town, so there's so many great restaurants along there that we could just walk to. So that was a fun thing to do. Not at the moment; it's too hot.
I mean, Orlando is full of great little
Oh,
restaurants and
we are
hidden spots, and
such good.
it's increased. I think about when we first moved here, and like there was some options, but I mean
Oh,
now it's
just spoiled.
every neighborhood has two or three great little, restaurants or coffee shops or whatever it is.
And
Um,
I love the main streets. Like I love that concept that each like Thornton Park has its own kind of vibe. So does Baldwin Park, so does Winter Park, so does the Milk District, so does, Mills 50. Everyone's got their own thing, and I love that. I think that's a really, really cool vibe that we've got going.
it's the city of neighborhoods, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
And I also think about food spots in Orlando that I relate to working at the club or eating with Orlando City. And one of the places that I remember was there was next to the old Winter Park office. Do you remember Eat More Produce? There was that.
yes,
There's a little store right now. I think that's where there's like a McLaren dealership there, but there was like a little produce store,
yeah,
and in there, I used to go and get the most incredible sandwiches, and that was,
yeah.
those are sometimes the memories of these food places, is like where you were when you used to go there on a regular basis. So,
Yeah.
we thank you so much, Kay, for joining us on the first ever episode of Forever a Lion. You are the heart and soul of this club. You are its founder, and it's important people to know your story. And we thank you for sharing your Orlando City story with us.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me on. It was a really lovely walk down memory lane. And thanks to you for being part of it too. Because, like I say, having you and James in the beginning is just such a special memory for me.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here, Kay. Have a walk down memory lane. So I
Yeah.
hope you've all enjoyed a little reminiscing with us. Maybe you remember some of these things we're talking about. Maybe you were there. If not, I hope you've learned a little bit about the past and who we are and where we come from. So I want to thank you all for joining us here on Forever Aligned. Can subscribe on YouTube. We have a brand new YouTube channel. Just search Forever Aligned. You can drop a like or a comment there on the video. You can also listen on Spotify, on Apple Music as well. Please leave us a 5-star rating so more people can find us. I've got a lot of big plans coming up for this podcast and a long list of guests. But you're just going to have to find out as we go through one by one. But of course, we have to start with Kay. So thank you again to Kay. And thank you all for listening.